Welcome to another edition of the A-List podcast. I'm your host, A.Sherrod Blakely, with the co-host with the most, Kwani A. Lunis. What's going on with you, Kwani?
I'm doing well. And I want to talk about Team USA falling to 0-2 already in Olympic exhibitions. What's going on with the United States of America?
You know what? I mean, they look like that team that, you got all the pieces, but you haven't quite figured out how to put this puzzle together. Whereas everyone else has been working on their puzzle for months and years in some instances. They look like a team that just hasn't quite figured out how to play together. It's not about talent. I think that's being overstated. People thinking that they're just not as good. No, that's not the issue. They just don't know how to play well with each other. And I think that they will figure that out over time. Because remember, their first two games that they lost, they had a total of maybe 6 days, I think, working together. You're not going to be able to compete at the highest of levels on a global stage with 6 days of practice. The gap between the talent overseas and internationally and the United States and Team USA is not nearly as great as it was 8, 10, 12, 20 years ago. So it's going to take them a little bit of time. I'm still expecting nothing short of a gold medal. I still believe that they're going to figure that out. And the other thing, too, is Popovich, I thought, was just kind of experimenting with a lot of different lineups and rotations and guys that he's probably not going to play as much when the games actually matter and they get to the medal round. So I'm not as freaked out about it as a lot of people are. But again, it's, to me, more than anything, it's a reminder that you may be nice, but you ain't that nice where you can just show up and just knock cats out left and right. You got to actually play and play well together.
That's absolutely a really valid point. And to your point about the chemistry issue, which is essentially what their biggest problem is now, when you have the best players in the world on the same team, I can't imagine that it's always going to be the easiest. You have a bunch of egos, you have a bunch of talent. It's not that easy to just have them all mesh immediately. So I'm just hoping that they bounce back a little sooner rather than later so that they can play and succeed in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned chemistry. I mean, and certainly they're working on that. But I tell you what, you look at the NBA Finals, and chemistry is not an issue for either team. I mean, Milwaukee, when their guys are playing well, they look like world beaters. The Suns, their guys have been playing well, I think, throughout the entire playoffs. And they, to me, have positioned themselves to be that team to, I think, win it. I said from the beginning, I thought they'd win it in 6, and I still feel that way. But Milwaukee is not going to go down without a fight. And they got some guys who can, really get it done. They got some guy from Greece named, what's his name? Giannis or something? What was his name?
Yeah,
he's pretty good. Hey, Kwani, he's pretty good, right, Kwani?
He's okay. I've heard about him. I'm kidding. No, but yes, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and our guest today has done more research than most journalists have about Giannis specifically. So let's welcome her in now. Mirin Fader, thank you for coming back to the pod.
Oh my God, I love coming on. Yeah, no, I love coming on with you guys. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you back because it's the end of the year. Big things are happening in the NBA. Big things are happening in Mirin Fader's life. We'll get to that later. But the NBA Finals, you've got the Milwaukee Bucks, you've got the Phoenix Suns, two teams that not a lot of people probably thought would be here at this point. Are you surprised that they're the last two teams standing?
Yeah, I am. But I actually really like it. I don't know. I was noticing that people were complaining, and I don't know. I just really have been enjoying it. Like, I don't know. Like, obviously, I have vested interest in wanting the Bucks to advance. But like when the Suns were on and they were just being such a team and swinging the ball, and you could just tell they liked each other, it was exciting to me. I don't know. I was just like, wow, this is really good basketball, and I can appreciate that.
Now, as you alluded to, you do have a rooting interest in this NBA Finals series. But I'm curious, though, just your impressions of how this series has actually played out so far, where, there's great storylines on both sides with both teams. But just what are your impressions of how this thing has played out? Even though, obviously, to your point, a lot of people are like poo-pooing on this because you don't got It's not the way we've seen finals for like the last 10 years. As if change is not a good thing. But anyway, I digress. What are your impressions of just the finals so far?
I just feel like we're not even appreciating what we're witnessing right now with Giannis. Like what he's doing is something that I feel like we're going to look back on and be like, wow, I saw that game where he strung together all these 40-point performances on the highest level / while injured. I feel like we're so desensitized, but it is truly remarkable what's going on. So it's just been so cool to see that. And I have a ton of respect for Chris Paul. Like, when I was in college and I was an intern for the Clippers, that was his first year there. And so, like we watched this guy and it's like it's finally his moment. So I really appreciate that. It also just has been reminding me a lot about when we talk about like what makes a team. When the people around Giannis do really, really well, it's amazing. When they're silent, it's like you can tell. It's so jarring. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's so bad. And so it's really just reinforced to me this classic idea of like, to win at this level, every single human on the team has to be extremely on all the time, the entire game.
True.
For those who aren't aware at this point, you did write a book about Giannis specifically. For those who still haven't bought the book, what should they know about it? Especially now that he has gotten to the platform that he's been trying to get to for so long.
Yeah, so basically I felt like we don't really know much about Giannis. We just kind of know the outline of his life, right? Like we know he grew up in a really difficult upbringing in Greece, and then all of a sudden he's an NBA MVP, but we know nothing about literally everything that happened in between. So this is like from the beginning childhood all the way up till now. It's the story behind the scenes of not just him, the basketball player, but like him, the father, him, the brother, him, the son. I did 221 interviews, so reported very hard during this pandemic. So yeah, I'm really happy it's done.
Yes. And the thing that, and you kind of touched on it, is that with Giannis, there's so many layers to who he is and what he has done to get where he's at, and to encapsulate all of that into what I believe is 400-page novel, which for some people says that's a lot, but you and I both know when you're putting together books, there's so much material that is left on the cutting room floor that you could literally write a second and third book out of the stuff that you did not use.
So true. I know 400 seems like a seriously big commitment, but I promise like it's not going to be boring. But yeah, no, with Giannis, the problem was having too much, because it's not just the story of him, it's the story of Milwaukee. Because in order to understand the rise of Giannis, you have to understand the rise of the Bucks, because he was so much a part of that. The only reason they're still in Milwaukee is because of Giannis. Like this man saved a franchise. And so a lot of the book deals with that. And there was so much I wanted to include beyond that. And also it just kind of contextualizes just the current climate with everything going on, and, his two identities, Greece and Nigeria. And so, organizing this thing was just a beast. I write long form for a living, so I'm used to like having to decide like, okay, this anecdote's better than this one. But when you just have like binders, you're like, I literally don't know what to do. Like, I do not know what to do with this. So yeah, it was definitely like kill your darlings to the extreme.
Long form on steroids is how I've come to understand writing books can be.
Yes.
But the one thing about Giannis that I've always found interesting, just because I think of all the different layers about him, the one that speaks to just how he's just a different kind of superstar in this generation is the decision to not only stay in Milwaukee, but sign a long-term deal that doesn't have 852 loopholes that can get him out after 6 months, after a year and 6 months, after 2 years. His commitment to the organization, his commitment to his teammates, you don't see that level of commitment, knowing that there's a lot of unknown ahead of you with the team you're with, yet you're still committed to that. That's unusual.
It's unusual, but it's also unusual how Milwaukee committed to him. Like his rookie year, there's a chapter on how much the GM, John Hammond at the time, was just so dedicated to him. I mean, they drove him places. They taught him how to drive. They introduced him to different foods. They were there around the clock for him. They gave his parents keys to the gym. Like, these are people that were with Giannis from the beginning, back when nobody thought he would be Giannis, So I think if you look back to that rookie year where the only reason he gets to play is because they won 15 games. And you look at now, and he's tasked with making this decision to stay or not. Like, he doesn't forget that, these are people that took a chance on him, drafting him without any medical information about him. So and he's built a life here, like visiting their home when I was reporting for the story and talking with Alex, the youngest brother, and his mom. It's like, it isn't this place that they happen to be. It's their home, and so it makes sense to me that things ended up the way that they ended up with him.
Yeah, and with John Hammond that you mentioned, I know John Hammond going all the way back to Detroit, and the way he handled things with Giannis, I thought that was almost like, this is what I learned when we had Darko Milicic in Detroit, and some of the things that we did that worked, some of the things that we didn't work. Let's take the things that worked and bring them over. And when I'm dealing with Giannis, because the portion where you're talking about his family, I thought that component of Giannis was so important for his growth and success. And I thought that was a lesson learned from Darko, who came over here with no family. I distinctly remember seeing his first apartment, and he was joking, but he really wasn't joking. It was bigger than his entire home back, where he came from. And that, for a 18, 19-year-old kid to have this type of lavish lifestyle where you don't have the grounding that you're used to with your family and your mom and your dad and your friends from since you were 17, you don't have that anymore. That Giannis seems to have benefited from that, and he just seems like a really genuinely good guy. And I wish the Celtics would have drafted him. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. I was convinced that they were going to draft him because they traded up that year to I think it was 13, and I knew that Milwaukee was going to draft Giannis because Giannis was John Hammond's kind of guy. I was convinced that was going to happen. So when they moved up to 13, I'm spending all this damn time trying to Giannis Antetokounmpo, Antetokounmpo, Antet, just working on how to say it, how to spell it, because I'm going to be spelling it for the. And then when they took my good friend Kelly Olynyk, who I love, he ain't Giannis. Wasn't that he wasn't that day and hasn't been a day since. Love him though, still love him.
So one of my favorite interviews was actually learning about the Celtics' interest in Giannis and traveling to Greece. And Austin Ainge told me, he was like, look, if we had known Giannis would grow 2 inches once he got to the NBA, obviously this would be a different story, he would not have fallen to where he had fallen to. And learning about the time where Danny Ainge came to Greece, and he came to a road game in a place called Volos, and the fans were heckling him, right? They don't know who he is at first. They think Danny Ainge is an opposing Greek GM. Then they find out he's Danny Ainge. And then they start screaming insults and curses. And then they start screaming Lakers. And then he realizes they're making fun of him because they realize he's Danny Ainge. And it's just so great. It's just in this place in Bola, he has no idea what they're saying. And then finally they're like, dude, he's a famous GM. So he was definitely there. And I thought you guys would appreciate the Celtics anecdote. But Hammond told me about the Darko thing too. He was like, look, I knew Giannis wanted his family to come over there. And he's like, I think that's one of the biggest reasons Darko didn't work out, because he didn't have that support. So, the book talks about how lonely Giannis was that rookie year because he didn't have his family. And I don't think people realize how close he was to wanting to quit and go home. And so there's a chapter about that, because it is really hard when you come overseas to play in the NBA.
Absolutely.
Before Chris Paul mentioned the fact that Giannis doesn't get as much respect as he maybe should from not only fans, but other NBA players. During your time working on that book, did you get any sense that he has that sense that people may not respect him to the level of his capabilities?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One of the quotes that stand out that I found in an interview where somebody, he said, my girlfriend, my parents, everyone keeps telling me I could be the face of the league. But then I hear comments where people say I can't be the face of the league because I don't have the American swagger. I don't have, I'm not American. I'm international. And it's so interesting to actually bring this up now with the discourse that we're seeing in baseball and things like that. Yeah. But he was very keenly aware of that angle, to your point. And he's like, but if I can't be the face of the league being exactly as I am, then I don't want to be the face of the league. So I love that so much. And, his brothers always make fun of him. They're like, how come you still have your accent? You know, how come you just don't get rid of it? And he's like, because this is who I am. You know, like if you notice, the brothers do not, you know, really have their Greek accent still. And so he's obviously keenly aware of what people think. But when you take it to the level of like the absurd memes and like Giannis is not in his bag and the Robin, like he doesn't care. Absolutely doesn't care.
Well, we certainly care that he could have been a Celtic. Damn it.
I know. That's painful.
It's just painful.
Hey, this is comedian J.L. Covan, best known for his impression of Donald Trump. I'm going to be at City Winery in Boston for one night only, July 26th at 8 p.m. Hope to see you there.
Is it game time yet or no? I don't know.
I mean, it can be if you'd like. Yeah, we could.
Well, you know what? Before we get into the answer, I do have one question. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm sure it's probably crossed your minds as well. We all know about just the soap opera that is what it is with ESPN, with Maria Taylor, Rachel Nichols, and all of that. And not getting into that specifically, but what I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, Mirin, was just that being a woman in sports, particularly in the media game. Can you speak to just some of the challenges that come with that, and how have you been able to navigate that successfully to where you have a very not only an established career, but one that has tremendous lanes of growth still left ahead of you? How have you been able to really manage that and have, you know, your gender, which you have no control over, really, not be an issue or be a hindrance to your growth in this industry?
Yeah, I mean, first, I definitely just, you know, love and support to Maria Taylor, who I don't know, but who's amazing. And she should be paid everything.
She getting that bag. I'm going to just tell you right now, she getting that bag. So. Yeah,
I'm very happy to hear that. Yeah, it's so weird because it's like there's been, like, I get asked this all the time by, you know, younger students and younger women. They're just like, you know, how do you deal with this stuff? And I always tell them you're going to have like your smaller moments, smaller painful moments, and like unfortunately bigger painful moments. And the smaller ones seem really small, but when they happen, they really hurt. And it's hard because people think it doesn't affect you, but it obviously does affect you. So I think just like being aware that you know, when I want people to think of me, I want them to think of me as like a journalist. And being a woman is so important to that. But I've noticed the way that, like, when I started out trying to get advice from other women in the industry, like they just like wouldn't really respond, or, you know, just not really take the time. And it was unfortunate because I'm like, there's so few of us here. Like, you know, I just want to be your friend. And I would notice that at the beginning. And now more women want to talk to me, but I've found that like there is this like competitive, there's only spot for one, and it's sad. And I think a lot of the negative things I've experienced actually came from women, not men, which is like very disappointing. But I guess to persevere through it, because of course I deal with the stuff from men too, especially men in positions of power, that like the agents and the handlers and them treating you inappropriately. It's like they know that you need them for access and they put you in this really awful loop. And so the way that I look at it is like, no story is worth being disrespected for. So if somebody's not treating me the way that, you know, I feel like I should be treated, then I don't have to do that story. Like, I think when I was younger, I did, and I pushed through it and it was uncomfortable, but it's like, now it's like, I don't need to do that. And so I think it's just kind of just saying like, okay, like this is really unfortunate that it happened. And I am going to just keep doing this because I want to do this, not because I'm trying to prove to somebody that I know what I'm talking about. Because I know, Kwani, I'm sure you deal with this as well. Like they look at us and they think we don't know what we're talking about. And all the time. And I just stopped thinking about what they thought of me. Like I stopped thinking like that voice in the back, like, I know he doubts my knowledge. I know he thinks that I don't know. I just stopped. It's like, if you don't think that I know what I'm talking about, or you don't see me in some way, like I don't care anymore. So I think it's just getting rid of that like conscious voice that's like worried about these things, and just staying in my own lane and just staying true to myself. That was really long. Sorry.
No, please.
Yeah.
dropping those knowledge bombs. We need more of that. So that's good stuff. That is good stuff. And Mirin, I'm not telling you anything that I haven't said behind your back. I'm a huge fan of yours. I love the way you operate. I love the way you are able to craft long narrative pieces. You are an example that I use with my students all the time. As you know, some of them reach out to you and you get back to them, which I appreciate because I tell them, listen, man, you don't just get talent just walk up through the building and you pretend as if Michael Jordan walk up to the building, what, you just going to look at him and be like, oh, okay, that's just Michael Jordan. No, you reach out if they're willing to reach out to you, and you have been able to do that, and I am greatly appreciative of that, and many of my students are as well. And Kwani, you know what time it is.
Now it's game time. All right,
okay,
first
Kwani.
game, fill in the lane. We say a phrase, and you fill in the blank for it. So if you could write a book about anyone in the NBA for your second book, it would be about blank.
Oh my God. Kawhi. It's time to crack open
Kawhi.
Kawhi, if you're listening, I do not think of this process as cracking open. I just want to clarify, but okay.
Okay. The one NBA story that you remember more than any other story is blank.
Oh, that's a really hard question. Okay. Blanking.
This is what happens when you write a lot of really good stories. This is what happens when you do that.
Are you talking about just like NBA, like the things that happen, like big storylines?
It can be one you wrote too.
I remember being on a plane when the Philly Twitter thing happened and everyone's texting me and I'm in the air and I can't respond to this monumental internet moment. That just came to mind. I was just like not present. I was not present. And like, I have a very large family in Philly and I was not present for this most like epic internet moment. And I always remember just like, God damn, why do I miss everything?
Right.
I seriously live under a rock.
Of all the days you needed to be on NBA Twitter, it was that day.
Exactly. The one day.
Just like forever. Like there's just a 60-year-old woman living inside of me that's just like never in the moment on the internet I can't.
We need to crack you open then. Get the 60-year-old.
I know. Yes, I know.
Right. Our final game is called Starting Five. I'll say a phrase and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind when I say it. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
The NBA as a league
has to do better with transparency.
Has to do better with, yes. Female sports journalists.
Wish it was less divisive.
The Boston Celtics.
Marcus Smart.
There you gave us for those who missed it, the first time she was on the pod, she gave us a Marcus anecdote. So go check that one out. Final one, Mirin Fader.
The nerdiest person you know, like constantly just like there's not enough time to read all the books that I want to read.
Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Great trait to have.
It is. It allows all those long form stories to just kind of find a way to flow and ebb the way they're supposed to.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Unashamed.
Wow. I'm full. I'm good.
Mirin, this was great. Thank you for joining us for another episode. We're honored to have had you on this podcast twice. So you're always welcome.
I'm honored to talk with you two. You two are amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
You are A-list VIP titanium level status. Titanium.
Wow.
Not gold, not platinum, titanium.
Wow. All right.
Absolutely.
I'm good.
Don't forget the book. August 10th is when it comes out, correct? Is that the release date? Yeah. Okay. You can pre-order it now in advance at Amazon and all your other places where you can order books in advance. I've got at least one. I think I ordered a copy last time you were on the podcast, and I ordered another one yesterday. So
coming to his house.
I think one of them I think is coming through Kindle, and the other one is a hardback copy because I don't think I ordered a hard book copy.
Books are the best.
They are.
I love this. Thank you for doing that.
No problem. Thank you for being you. Kwani, you take us out.
Yes, Mirin Fader of The Ringer. Thank you again for joining our podcast.
Thanks, guys.
What do you have coming down the pipeline from your other Side hustle.
Oh, let's see. You know what? We're just going to continue with NBA coverage. I'll be doing that for Bleacher Report as well as Boston Sports Journal. I'll probably get into a little bit of a couple of Olympic-themed stories for Ebony.com. And from a content standpoint, that's pretty much what I'll be doing. Also, there'll be some garden reports between now and next couple of weeks. We'll certainly be jumping on that as we kind of delve into Team USA, who ain't looking all that Team USA like lately.
It's not looking like the American dream at the moment.
Nah, instead of Team USA, they looking like Team Used every day. That's what they looking like. So,
yeah.
But so we got a few things. What about you, Kwani? What do you have coming on NBC 10?
So actually, a promo went out today on NBC 10 Boston for a show called The Hub Today. I teased it this last week. I will be one of the recurring hosts on this show. It's from Mondays through Thursdays on NBC 10. It's a morning show, entertainment, sports, everything really that you get out of a morning show. So you can see me more on the regular there, but also 10 Questions continues to live on. And I'm still working on this next guest. It's been really hard to get communication with her people, but I'm going to keep the series rolling as well.
You got to keep hitting that rock. It's going to crack some point.
Just keep emailing.
There you go. Keep emailing. Send.
Did you get my last email?
You mean email 17 or 18? Because I don't know if I got 18, but 17, if the previous 16, I got them.
Yeah. Right.
All you got to do is respond.
That's it.
End of the day, we all winning. With the A-List podcast. Well done. We got another show in the books, Kwani. Nice job as always. Want to just special shout out to our guest, Mirin, whose book on Giannis Antetokounmpo will be coming out August 10th. You can get an advanced copy through Amazon and all your other book advanced sites and publications. And it's going to be a great book. She's an amazing writer for The Ringer. Excited to finally get my hands on that book, all 400 pages of it. Because you can. There's only 400 pages on my phone is a lot for me to consume. I'd much rather have this crack a book open and go there. So
yeah, I like books. Too. Like physical books.
For sure. And I like the A-List podcast, and I like the fact that we're one more episode in the books.
That's true.
For Kwani A. Lunis, I'm A.Sherrod Blakely, and this is the A-List Podcast. We will see you and talk to you very soon. Take care, people.